I'm going to preface this by mentioning that I couldn't really figure out a better way of recording this. So this is what we're rolling with. And hopefully you guys enjoy nonetheless. Hello everyone and welcome back to a brand new video, and welcome to my 100k Q&A. Yes, I decided to do it with a different camera today. I don't often use this camera, but we're rolling with it just because I thought it would be something a little bit different and higher quality. I've realised, though, as soon as I've jumped into the recording that I can't quite see the screen and the microphone might be covering half my face, but we roll with it. So, basically, a couple of weeks ago, we finally got this. It's a glorious thing. It's my YouTube play button. For those of you that don't know, YouTube very kindly send you one of these out when you hit 100,000 subscribers. But some of you might instantly be asking the question, Matt, didn't you hit 100,000 subscribers quite a long time ago? So we're going to start this Q&A with a brief explainer of that. Now, yes, I hit 100,000 subscribers, I think all the way back now in March, I want to say. So I obviously hit up YouTube, went through their simple policy of obviously, claiming your 100,000 subscriber play button, and they turned around and went no, because apparently my channel was related to channels doing scam practices. Now, I've got a completely clean record on YouTube. I don't know what that was all about. So it took 3 months of them checking my channel almost every day before they finally decided that actually, yes, I wasn't promoting how to illegally escape into a different country or something like that. I don't quite know, or illegal gambling, something of the sort. So we're finally here doing my 100k Q&A, which again, I asked the questions a few weeks ago, and then just got caught up with a lot of other things. But before we dive in, though, with all the questions, I just want to say a massive thank you to all of you as well for the continued support on my work. Having this, I genuinely never thought was going to be possible. The idea that almost now 120,000 of you could be potentially on the other side of that camera looking in is beyond mind-blowing, so thank you all so much. And of course, it was actually a year ago last week that I went full-time on YouTube as well, so it's been a pretty mental 12-month period. I've loved every moment of it, and none of it would be possible without all of you, so it is greatly, greatly appreciated. But without further ado, let's get in then with the questions. So I apologise, of course, if these questions are going to be in a little bit of a random order, but I'm just going to go through all of my YouTube comments, then all of my Instagram comments, and then all of my Twitter ones. So our first question comes in then from Nico Was Taken. Would you ever plan on doing any modding for my team, such as making your own custom liveries for every team? Now, that is a fantastic question, and I've accidentally timed that quite well then, because of course the My Team career mode has now finished in its Audi guise. Starting probably, I'm aiming for the end of next week, we're going to be rocking a custom My Team career mode. We're going to be really diving in with some mods. I'm speaking to a couple of people as well about potentially a custom calendar, but that was one of the biggest reasons why I switched to PC for F123, was I wanted to be able to try and do finally some mod gameplay for you guys. So yes, mods will absolutely be coming to the next My Team career mode, which already I've got a few little bits and pieces behind the scenes working away. I am super excited for it. Next one then is from Arush Menon, which is, how and when did you first get into Formula 1 and who got you into it? So that one's pretty simple. The year was 2007, and it was my dad. He'd been watching Formula 1 since he was quite young, so of course, he got to watch Formula 1 through like the 80s and 90s, got to watch obviously Senna race. His first ever memory, I think, of Formula 1, rather morbidly, was Gilles Villeneuve, actually his crash at, I think it was Zolder, wasn't it? His unfortunately fatal incident there. My first Formula 1 memory, now, I know I started watching it as much as you can as a 7-year-old kid back in 2007. My first proper vivid memory of Formula 1 was Hamilton winning the 2008 British Grand Prix there, of course, by over a minute. Still, I think many would argue his greatest ever Formula 1 race win. I've been a fan of Hamilton, obviously, since he got into Formula 1. Of course, being a 7-year-old impressionable kid, he was from the same country as me, and I like Jenson Button as well, because of course, who doesn't love JB? But yeah, when I get sort of comments from people, go and say, I'm sort of a Lewis Hamilton fan, it comes with its stigma from some as well, and I'm sure there's already a few of you that have instantly unsubbed and clicked off the video, but I have been a Lewis Hamilton fan pretty much since the day he stepped into Formula One, and seeing him, kind of how much he's progressed in the sport and as a human as well, it's kind of taught me a lot about life as well over those 16 years. God, I'm old. But yeah, I've been a Hamilton fan. It was my dad that got me into Formula 1 in the first place. Next one comes in then from Woof Woof Enjup, which is, do you plan on doing more endurance races? So for those of you that don't know, I actually do some endurance racing over on my Twitch channel at Matt212. Mainly it's on iRacing, but I want to do some ACC, and maybe when Forza 8 comes out, I'll jump on that as well. Yes, I'm planning on doing more endurance races. Again, we're going to get a nice cheeky plug in there. I think on October the 7th, I'm going to be doing Petit Le Mans, and I think between now and actually quite far into next year, I've got at least one endurance race a month, so very much looking forward to that, and it's actually tied into a bigger project that I'm doing as well, which hopefully is going to be unveiled either at the end of this year or the start of next year. Some of you, if you come around to my Twitch, might have heard it mentioned, but yeah, there's something quite cool and big coming in the near future. He's also asked me, how is my dog? At the time of recording this, she is in Italy. She actually went to Monza a couple of days ago and watched Mahavir Raghunathan get a podium in some GT3 cars. So she's seen Mahavir Raghunathan have more success in a race car than most humans can ever say, which is an odd thing to say out loud. Next one then comes from Elias, and that is, which race do you find the most exciting in every F1 season? There's always a few that I look forward to. Silverstone, the last couple of years, has provided absolute bangers. Belgium as well, I just love that track. I know a lot of the racing isn't fantastic there, but Belgium is another one I always look forward to. Qualifying at Monaco is always pretty special, but to be honest, I kind of get hyped by most of the races. I watch every single one, or as many as I can, live, so I kind of look forward to basically all of them, to be honest. There's none that I ever won't watch, because it's my job. He's also asked, can I describe F1 in one phrase? It's a wild mixture of high-end technology, pushing the limits of physics, and also spending lots of money, which is a really bad description for it, but that's what I'm going with. Tanner asks if I ever did any karting. No, to be completely honest. I went go-karting with my mates for, birthday parties and that kind of thing, but my family simply didn't have the money for that kind of thing ever. It was never even, a possibility. I probably haven't now been go-karting genuinely in probably over 10 years. I'd love to go-karting again, and I'd love to race real cars if given the opportunity, but yeah, I never was kind of a kid that couldn't make it to F1, so got into sim racing. I've just always been a sim racing fan. Tomb asks, do I prefer oversteer or understeer, and what starting wheel would I recommend? I'm a bit weird. My driving style, actually, in a lot of sims, suits cars that understeer, which I know is quite rare, because most people quite like an oversteery car, but it's why I've always had good fun and some success in, touring cars and that kind of thing. What starter wheel would I recommend? Either a Thrustmaster TMX/T150 or a Logitech G920. I'm gonna do another cheeky plug as well in the process of that. Actually, check out my Discord server. There's a link down in the description below. I have I have wheel sim racing budget guides from £200 all the way up to £2,000. So check it out there if you need any assistance. Panda Gaming asks, can I do a series on MotoGP 23? Honestly, if I'd been there at the time on MotoGP, maybe. The problem I have is I'm awful at the MotoGP games, and I don't follow MotoGP in real life. The racing, obviously, from the clips you see, is absolutely insane. But for me, it's just that constant worry of just how often you still get fatalities in motorbike racing. I'm not particularly comfortable with, but maybe in the future I'll get back into some motorbike games. I enjoyed playing Isle of Man over the summer, so maybe in the future. The next question, as well from Panda, is, do I like cats? They're all right. I am a dog person. Obviously, those of you that know and will have already heard in this podcast, I have a dog. In the future, in my own happy world, I will have a dog. But cats can be fine. They're just a bit odd. I don't quite get them. Like, if I walk into a room and my dog's there, I can just give her attention. A cat might just turn around and go for you, and I don't like that. Which I get that some dogs would as well, but just get a Labrador. They just are great. Would you be willing to make any spin-off series in the My Team universe? That leads quite nicely back to the question we had a few minutes ago. Yes, and that is kind of the plan already. Arthur asks, what controller pedals do you use for sim racing? Any good recommendations? Again, I will link you to my Discord server. I guess this is quite a good one, the fact I'm sat in my sim rig. Fanatec CSL GTDD, a Fanatec F1 steering wheel, and the CSL Elite V2 pedals. And then I've also got the handbrake, the shifter, and I've got a Trakracer TR120. None of this was sponsored. It just is really doing the job. And honestly, this has probably been the first time since I got a steering wheel in 2016, where I haven't at any point so far felt the need for an upgrade. All of this stuff really does the job. But again, yeah, check out my Discord server if you want any recommendations for different budgets. Hardway asks, which F1 team on the grid is your favourite, and have you ever thought about competing in F1 esports? So for me, I generally follow drivers more than teams, but I like obviously Mercedes, I like McLaren, I like Williams. Not really a lot of teams I don't like anymore, to be completely honest, but those are kind of like the three that I always really back. Have I ever considered racing in F1 esports? Fun fact, I did. Back in 2018, I actually qualified on Xbox for the F1 esports series, and then in my race-off, I got taken out on lap 1 at Monaco, so that was kind of the end of my F1 esports career. I did actually used to play, I also was a Dirt Rally semi-finalist Dirt 4, wasn't it? I think I was ranked 7th on Xbox in the world. And then I was also quite a high-level Forza player. I would love to get back into more competitive stuff, but the level of esports now is insane, and if I wanted to do that, Jarno's probably the only one that's been able to find a good balance between content and esports, but of course he doesn't edit or do anything else with like his YouTube channel. He just obviously streams, so I would struggle to find the time to do both, and honestly, I prefer making content. Pascal asked, what are my favourite movies and video games outside of racing? Honestly, I don't watch many movies at all. This has kind of been the weird thing that my girlfriend's trying to learn, is I don't watch movies particularly ever. So we're going back through watching the Harry Potters at the moment. We're also watching Modern Family, just because it's something you can sit down and don't really have to think about too much. Other movies that I like that aren't involving racing, you got some of the classics, your Forrest Gumps. I absolutely love that. I'm trying to think of other movies that I will just sit down and watch. The Big Short, I quite like that one. I know it's probably quite a rogue choice for a lot of you, but I'm quite interested in finance and all that kind of thing. So that's another big one that I will quite happily go back and watch again. But yeah, outside of that, other video games that I play outside of racing as well? Not a lot, to be honest. I play some Counter-Strike from time to time. I haven't played CS2 yet still, but that is kind of like the one game that I'll play that isn't racing, and then just a couple of random bits and pieces. Like occasionally I'll play Bloons Tower Defense for some reason. I just quite like playing that. And I have a Nintendo Switch that I play like some of the Mario platformers from time to time. But honestly, like my favorite games to play are sim racing titles, and obviously I make content on those as well, so it kind of works quite nicely. Lancia F123 asks, what do I think of Yuki Tsunoda and Alex Albon? Albon, I think, has been doing a mega job, and I think he's, looking comfortable at Williams now. I think he's going to be there a long time. And to be honest, I think they kind of quite suit each other as well, as, Williams are trying to make this push back forwards. Tsunoda, I've said this all year, I think has been doing a good job in the AlphaTauri, but of course, especially now after Lawson got 9th at Singapore, I think Tsunoda's been doing a good job all year, but Nick de Vries doing so badly made Tsunoda look a lot better. I think he absolutely deserves a place on the grid. Obviously, we talk about this a lot on my F1 podcast, but it wouldn't surprise me if Red Bull get rid of him because Honda are going to Aston Martin anyway, which would be a shame for him to take a year out, but he will be at Aston Martin in the future. Luke Bryant asks, what car do I drive in real life? So I'm quite lucky. Recently, I actually bought a new car, or a few months ago now, actually, I bought a new car. So I actually now own a BMW M140i. For those that don't know, it's basically a BMW 1 Series. Yes, before I get the question, I do know how to use my indicators, and I like to think I'm pretty good at using my indicators as well. But that's an absolute great fun car to drive. You know, it's a little hot hatchback, 350 horsepower, rear-wheel drive. You know, like in the rain, it's had a couple of interesting moments, but I haven't put it through a tree yet. So yeah, BMW M140i in Valencia orange. That is my daily driver, and yeah, my only car at the moment. I'd love to make some real-life automotive content. But I just don't drive enough. Alexa, I'm probably going to set off my one. Nope, that's all right. We've got away with that. What was the first game I played? Racing game. So, I'm trying to remember exactly. It was either Colin McRae Rally 2, I believe, or Need for Speed Most Wanted 2005, or I think it was called World Racing 3, or F1 2005. It was one of those four that I remember playing as a kid. Those were like the four games I played as a kid. Maria asks, what are the future for the channel and where do I plan on taking it? Now, that's kind of been quite interesting because in the last couple of months I've kind of expanded out anyway. The Matt212 YouTube channel, I think, is dead set on Formula 1 content. You know, I think we're there for life now, to be honest. But, of course, you know, I've been doing a few bits and pieces elsewhere. So, obviously, I've got my sim racing channel with, like, iRacing and, obviously, my league racing stuff. Obviously, I've got the F1 Manager channel, which I haven't played F1 any Manager on yet. I've also, obviously, got my rally channel as well. Other avenues I'd love to go down in the future. Planning, potentially, on making some CS content at some point in the near future, you know. Like I said, obviously quite interested in that, so skins, that kind of thing, I'm quite interested in. And then also, just because it actually interests me a lot, quite personally, and I'm quite into it, is actually like finance, and I'm going to say the dreaded word as well, crypto. I know that's kind of become like the big thing to hate now, and I completely agree. There is a lot to hate about the crypto space, but there's still a few good things in it that I find fascinating as well. And if I ever was going to make any crypto content, obviously it would be on its own separate page anyway. You know, it wouldn't get in the way of any of this. But it is something I'm quite passionate about. I like talking about, and I do get asked about it quite a lot in sort of like my stream and stuff. Obviously, with what I do with crypto, rather than, you know, shilling some random coin that I've been paid £500 to sell to you all. Callum asks, do I enjoy any other sports outside of F1? Yes, I do. So I obviously most of what I watch is racing. So Formula 1 is obviously the big one. I also like watching World Endurance. I would love to stream some live watch-alongs of like World Endurance or F1 in the future, but of course generally at the moment I watch it with my family, so that's not possible. Other sports that I like watching, rugby is probably the big one that I still watch a bit. You know, obviously Rugby World Cup on at the moment, so not expecting England to do well, but would like to believe they could. Other sports that I watch, don't really keep up with. I kind of have a rough idea with what's going on in football, but of course, you know, living in the UK, it's kind of hard not to. Apart from that, though, not really a lot else, to be honest. I like watch the Olympics and stuff, obviously, when that's around. But yeah, kind of Formula 1 motorsport is my big one. I watch a bit of rugby on the side of that, like the Six Nations and the World Cup. I won't watch League, that kind of thing. But yeah, those are like the big ones. John asks, what AI do I use on F123? Now, I get asked this question all the time. It's 104. It's just always what I run on F123. It does mean, obviously, some tracks I'm a little bit strong, other tracks I'm still a bit weak, but I don't really want to keep going around altering it all the time, so 104 AI is what I run. Here we go. Daryl asks, you can commentate very well on your own sim races on F123. Do you have a goal set towards Formula 1 commentary or even junior categories? Honestly, I don't know. This is the fun story about live commentary on my F1 videos. I actually did that originally back on F1 2020. So, of course, you know, at the height of the COVID pandemic, I was working a full-time job in a supermarket as well at the same time. I kind of obviously saw sim racing was absolutely exploding again, obviously, because I've been making videos before then. And I thought, well, if I record a video, I then have to spend another half hour commentating it afterwards. So I thought, why don't I just commentate it as I do it? It took me a few months. The first few were a bit rough. But then it kind of like became my niche, so we've kind of gone from there. Obviously, yes, if given the opportunity, I love to commentate in real life. You know, I've done a few of the Pirelli commentary challenges, sorry, DHL even commentary challenges before. I was obviously a finalist last year and obviously didn't make it through. That kind of hurt, to be honest. But it's kind of something I'd love to do, but it's not exactly at the forefront of my mind at the moment. It would like, especially with like junior formulas and stuff, you know. I sort of follow Alex Brundle, obviously, and obviously they commentate. I think it's in London. Obviously, they don't go out to most of the tracks for the commentary. That I would love to do as well, but of course, I'd also love to travel to the races for that kind of thing. Would I do it if given the offer? Absolutely. Is it at the front of my mind? Not right now. I'm kind of quite happy doing my own thing. Unfortunately, my camera decided to die, so we're back with the normal camera now, but let's carry on with the questions. Joel Petrolino asks, who do you go for in F1 for who you think will finish third in the Drivers' Championship? Basically first because of the Red Bulls. Now, that, of course, has suddenly been made quite interesting. Obviously, I'm recording this after Singapore Grand Prix. We don't know what Red Bulls' pace is going to be like throughout the second half of the year, so could Hamilton and Alonso catch up to Perez? Who quite knows just yet, but my guess at the moment is probably Lewis. Aston Martin just don't seem to be keeping up with the development of, you know, the likes of Mercedes, Ferrari, and obviously McLaren. So Hamilton is my guess at the moment, and of course now for the first time this year has taken P3 away from Fernando Alonso. Gladly Gaming asks, do I plan on collaborating with more content creators? Honestly, possibly. I obviously record co-op with Gary. I do the podcast with Jamie. So obviously I work with those two quite a bit. I want to do more stuff with James Early as well. You know, he's a fantastic friend of mine. I know a brilliant content creator as well. And we're kind of looking at building something up with Gary as well. I guess this probably mostly relates to the Creator League. If it wasn't on a Saturday night, I'd probably already be doing it, depending obviously on what night of the week it was. But yeah, I would certainly be down to collaborate with more content creators. I think it's just obviously in the F1 space, everyone kind of does their own little thing, I suppose. You know, you've kind of got really Ben and Alex that are the big two that collaborate a lot. But no one else really does too much. Like I said, I do it with Gary already and obviously Jamie as well with the podcast. But yeah, not a lot of people really do anymore, which is a bit odd, but it is what it is. Actually, following on from that quite nice then, the Marty Young asks, would I be interested in doing a race with a member of Quadrant? Yeah, of course I would. You know, I'd be quite happy to obviously do some stuff. In fact, I've actually raced with, I think, every member of Quadrant pretty much at some point or another. Funny story, I used to race Super GT back in 2016 when he had like 10,000 subscribers. I've raced Arav before a few times as well. I think I've raced Niran in the past back when he created F1 content. So I've raced with quite a few of them already. Weeks asks, do I increase or decrease the R&D points in career modes? Honestly, I leave them at standard. I think I knew that you could increase or decrease them, but I'd just leave them on standard because why do I need to change it kind of thing? Like, we kind of get to the top when we get to the top. I'm not too worried about having some script involved where I need to be at the top to then have a downfall. We kind of just try and get there when we get there. Ralph asks, what other games/sims do you play next to F1 and iRacing? So, Gran Turismo 7 is one that I do a bit. Assetto Corsa Competizione is another one I might get back into a bit more. Forza 8, I'm looking forward to when that comes out, and obviously I do a bit on F1 Manager. Definitely am going to be playing WRC 23. We've got a fair few racing games that I like to play, and GTA 5 from time to time. Of course, you know, when is GTA 6 finally going to release? It's 10 years old now, GTA 5, which is mad. YPEG4BD, interesting name. What is your motivation to do YouTube videos every day? Honestly, you know, it is my full-time job now, so I've obviously got to try and earn a paycheck at the end of the month. But I kind of always felt anyway, you know, for those of you obviously that are watching my videos and enjoying my videos, you know, I just, you know, you guys make my dreams possible without sounding too, you know, emotional and cliched. So why wouldn't I try to provide you guys with content as often as I can? You know, I get obviously like creator burnout and that kind of thing. But I'm quite comfortable with making daily videos. I quite like making daily videos. I like the routine of making daily videos. So, you know, occasionally obviously we'll take like Grand Prix race day Sundays off and things like that. And, you know, maybe in the future I could be, you know, potentially take a day off here or there, but I quite like keeping the routine. And, you know, I think I owe it to you guys as well, to be completely honest. The Lightning Man asks, what is your favourite F1 race that has ever happened? Gotta be probably Canada 2011, Silverstone 2008, or Brazil 2008. Probably my big three, you know, in my lifetime that have really stuck with me. Ho6636 asks, you should support Arsenal. And what do you think about Lando Norris with McLaren's upgrades? Obviously, I don't follow the Premier League. I don't know if Arsenal are doing any good or badly. McLaren, though, have definitely come on strong this year, though. You know, it's been staggering to see. You know, they went from being slowest at tracks like Miami to now suddenly being a proper frontrunner again. And it's beautiful to see. However, I do wonder how much longer Lando is going to be within that team. I think, you know, in the near future, he could be on up a move to Red Bull. Onyel asks, what is your favourite racing game of all time? I have often, it's a pretty easy one actually now I think about it, it's Forza Horizon 2. Still, is actually the game that I first made YouTube videos on this channel. But yeah, Horizon 2, obviously you can't even buy it anymore on Xbox. It's completely been taken off the market, but will always hold a special place in my heart. Brave Falmingo asks, since when did you start sim racing? So sim racing, it depends sort of what you count as sim racing, but I would probably say 2016 I sort of got back into playing games with like a wheel and stuff, which I guess is sort of more sim style. What got you into sim racing? Honestly, just I was actually watching like Ben and, for example, and things like that playing the F1 game years ago, and I was, you know, I kind of always enjoyed making or wanting to do YouTube videos, so I thought sim racing, you know, I'd like to think I know quite a lot of F1, so I kind of got into it that way. And what did you do before YouTube? So, I was working in a supermarket throughout COVID, just because obviously it was a job that was paying. Before then, I worked as a foreign exchange advisor, so that was helping people swap money into like euros and stuff. So YouTube was kind of always on the side to any of that, but yeah, it was fairly menial, boring work, but it got a paycheck at the end of the month. Rad Racing asks, who will be the next F1 champion after Verstappen? Of course, now he's basically guaranteed to wrap up F1 2023. Could anyone be a threat in 2024? I don't really know. My heart wants to say Lewis, but I think sensibly it's probably a toss-up between Charles, Lando, or George. Out of the three, I'm gonna go out on a limb and say Charles Leclerc. I think he will be the one that brings glory back to Ferrari. Kiralu asks, would you rather lose your channel or lose your sim rig? That is a brutal question. I guess my sim rig, because I could still make videos and then hopefully earn the money to buy another one again. That's a horrible question. Why are you thinking that kind of thing? I guess, yeah, you know, YouTube has been, you know, my pride and joy for so many years, you know, my channel, everything like that, of course, you know, this as well. So probably my sim rig, just in the hopes that I could get another one in the future. LFH Lewis asks, who's your favourite F1 YouTuber other than yourself? Honestly, I don't watch many other content creators, but I mentioned him a minute ago. James Early is one that I actually do watch whenever he uploads, and Gary as well, obviously I record with. I do watch his videos. Those are kind of the only two that I actually watch quite regularly. How did you get 212 in Matt 212 asks Sam Bathvong. Quite simple. My birthday is the 21st of the 2nd, 21st of February, so that's where 212 came from. It's a really boring answer, but people always think it's more exciting. Formula 1 editor asks, how do you pronounce scone? I'm guessing he either means scone or scone, and it's a scone because I'm not posh. Fabzilla asks, why do you support Forest Green Rovers? Support is a very strong word, but quite simply, Forest Green Rovers are my local club, so if anyone wants to try and stalk roughly where I live, you can do it via that. Yeah, that's why I support FGR, even though, from what I gather, they're doing atrociously again, and obviously the food at the stadium is awful. So now we're going to be moving over onto my Instagram. The first one comes in from Kane G. Watkins, asking, who is the best boss? I've ever had. Now, I've only ever had, I think, 3 or 4 bosses in my life, of course, before myself. I'm guessing I can't say myself, so I'm gonna say my first boss. Deki asks, how do you learn the track so well? Learn the braking line, the racing line braking points. Also love from Australia. Honestly, the best thing I can recommend, and it's really annoying because it's not fantastic advice, is just turn off the line and don't switch it back on. I've said it before, it's probably the only skill that, obviously every racing game handles differently, things like that. But being able to race without a braking line is probably one of the only really transferable skills. It does take time to learn. You will find yourself flying off tracks a lot to begin with. But honestly, the only thing I can recommend is just start racing without the line. It's so bad advice, but it's the only advice I can essentially give because it's what I did. Fleur asks, what would your dream F1 grid for 2024 be? Current drivers, F3, F2, F1, and reserves are allowed. Now, that is an interesting one. Yeah, it depends how sort of just stupidly unrealistic I go. I think, honestly, as much as I dislike him, Verstappen at Red Bull, I think, is just the way they've been able to operate in recent years has been ridiculous. I would like to see Lando Norris alongside him. Hamilton, Russell, I quite like down at Mercedes, so I'm quite happy with the way they are. I quite like Charles and Carlos at Ferrari as well. Everywhere else, though, McLaren, I would like to see Drugovich get the call up. Could he end up there or could he go to Aston Martin? I don't know, but I'd like to see him on the grid. Oscar Piastri is another one. Alfa Romeo, I want to see Teo Porcher get a drive, so I'd probably put him alongside Bottas, but then again, I like Zhou Guan Yu. Albon, I obviously quite like at Williams. I'd love to see Ollie Behrman get a Formula 1 drive as well. I'm trying to think of like F3 drivers or F2 drivers I'd like to see come up into F1 in the near future. Ollie Behrman is definitely one. Dennis Hauger is another one I'd love to see in the sport as well. Apart from that, though, I don't really try and think about it too much about kind of like my dream scenario because a lot of it will never happen. FP1 Will asks, who's your favourite content creator and why is it FP1 Will? I forgot to mention him. He obviously doesn't really do F1 gaming content, but his comedy stuff is fantastic. So Will, I'm going to give you the answer you like, and honestly, mate, you are hilarious. Oliver asks, who's your F1 idol growing up? I've kind of already answered that. Hamilton, but still my personal GOAT has got to be Ayrton Senna. Sean asks, watch you from around 10k, how do you constantly upload 1 or 2 videos most days? A lot of careful planning behind the scenes, to be completely honest. Now, I could show you my calendar, but it's very boring. But I just have quite an intense workflow. I got 2 PCs, which means that I can actually be recording a video as another video is rendering or uploading. So I'm kind of never really just working on one video at a time. Even right now, I've got another video uploading. So it takes a lot of sort of planning and preparation, and of course, the extra money of having 2 PCs. But that's how I kind of operate. Salim asks, any chance of the 2-player career will return with Jamie? Not on F123, just because he doesn't have a steering wheel anymore, but we have often discussed the idea of maybe in the future going back onto a retro game and doing a 2-player career mode. Sidorino asked, my favourite F1 car of all time. That is a good question. It's probably a toss-up between 3. Either the Braun BGP 001, the Mercedes W11, or the McLaren MP44. Yes, 3 quite dominant cars. The MP44 is kind of like the pinnacle. I would argue it's the only time in F1 ever that a team has had the ultimate team, as such as in McLaren had the 2 best drivers, the best car, and it was as close, obviously, especially now with the Red Bull losing in Singapore, it'll still be the closest we probably ever come to a flawless F1 season, because, that would have won all 16 races had they not been taken out of Monza. Obviously the Braun as well, just the ridiculous, we will never get a story like that again in Formula 1, a proper underdog tale like that. And the Mercedes W11, occasionally even now I will go back and watch some of those qualifying laps. Just the combination of the fastest F1 car of all time, Hamilton matching the record for 7 Formula 1 World Championships, and obviously, you watch some of those laps, and of course, the fact that the Grand Prix are empty, it was just car and track, is kind of weirdly atmospheric in a way I can't really describe. Aiden asks, what about the Creator Series? Again, I kind of touched on this earlier. I have spoke to them before time and time again. I would love to get involved. I just can't do Saturday nights regularly enough. Otherwise, I probably already would be in it. So Barca Daniel asks, what got you into YouTube and how do you stay so consistent and motivated? Definitely got to come down to the Oz Grand Prix one day. Yes, I would absolutely love to go to the Australian Grand Prix in the near future. What keeps me motivated to upload every day? It's a really odd one, to be completely honest, because kind of as I've grown up a bit more, and obviously especially as I've gone full time with it, I kind of... It's a weird thing to kind of say, and I'm probably going to go down a rabbit hole talking about it, but throughout my time at secondary school, now, I went to a decent local grammar school. So for those who don't know what a grammar school is, here in the UK, basically you've obviously got like your normal schools, obviously anyone can attend, obviously if you live in that area, but I went to a grammar school that actually you had a test to take to get in, so obviously passed that test, got in, and then it was kind of just a bit weird for a long time. I'm very much someone that is goals driven. Like I need to have that next thing to push for. And at that point in my life, being sort of 14, 15, 16, I really didn't. Combined with a couple of other things, and then it kind of got to the point where I had a lot of teachers kind of saying that I wasn't really ever going to do anything with my life. So there's probably an element of now, obviously, I'm quite happy with where I am in my life. I'm 23, I work for myself. I like to think I've done pretty well for myself now. I just kind of have got myself into a mindset where I'm very, very lucky in the sense of I love doing what I'm doing every day. And obviously, even, obviously from like working in a supermarket and things like that, there's probably an element of, I don't want to have to go back to that either. So it kind of, is that combination of I get to live my dream and I don't really want to throw that away. An element of probably want to prove some people wrong from earlier and younger years of my life. And just that kind of thing of, YouTube is still a fairly new thing. Of course, only sort of been around, especially, people actually been able to do it as a job for the last 10 years. I really do have, and I think to work for yourself as well, you've got to kind of have that utter belief that you can do it. And, I want to kind of do a lot of things in my life. I want to travel, that kind of thing as well. I want to, be able to look back in my 60s or 70s and really do believe I did everything I could. So that's quite important to me as well. So I guess, it's that kind of dedication and commitment to myself that I really want to just kind of, I've kind of got a few personal goals that obviously I won't share here that I kind of want to achieve in my life. And that's, I definitely am a person that needs an excuse to get up every morning, and kind of the next thing in my life that, obviously now I've got my kind of dream car, sensible dream car. The kind of the next big thing for me, of course, is moving into my own place and continuing to develop this business further and further, because of course that's what it is behind the scenes for me. So I guess, for me, to have that dedication, for me personally, I am someone that, needs a reason to get up in the morning. For a long time, that was my car, obviously trying to get that car. Now it's, I want to move into my own house. So that's kind of all I can recommend. Real Team Fox asks, what's your favourite F1 track on F123? Probably actually Qatar, which I didn't ever think I'd say, but Qatar is so much fun on the F1 game. I think genuinely I enjoy racing it more than Belgium, which is saying a lot. Silverstone is another one that's right up there. I actually still enjoy racing La Castellet. But Belgium, Qatar, Silverstone are probably my top three in one order or another. Pankyok asks, how many F1 games have you played? So I've played every F1 game from 2010 onwards. I've then obviously now, as of yesterday, I've started playing F1 2006. As I mentioned before, I played F1 2005 when I was a kid. But those are, the F1 games that I've played in my life. SXY Dexty asks, if you're doing a Q&A for 100k, what will you do when you hit the big 1 milli? Honestly, I think we're definitely, at the very least, a few years away from that. But let me know down in the comments below what I should do for 1 million subscribers if we ever get there. Which, of course, is still a ridiculously long way away. But again, going back to that, unbelievable self-belief, unwavering self-belief. I do absolutely believe in my heart that one day 1 million will be possible. So yeah, tell me what I need to do for a mil. Manashi asks, thought on Max Verstappen overall racecraft controversies, etc. Obviously, I talk about this a bit in the podcast. I don't think I've certainly gone on the record of saying he's not my favourite driver in the world. Is he absolutely rapid? Yes. Is he probably performing the best right now in Formula 1? Most weeks, yes. Is he unbeatable? No. Do I think that his racecraft is fantastic? Honestly, even now, I think, he still gets involved in incidents from time to time. I'm not a fan of his psychology. I'm not really a fan, of course, of, obviously his upbringing and obviously the Red Bull kind of, Max can't do wrong in their eyes. I think it's created quite a dangerous space. And obviously, I've mentioned it so many times as well on the podcast that unfortunately, Verstappen is probably the reason why drivers don't now race wheel to wheel with each other anymore in F1. That's annoying. But can I argue against his skill? Absolutely not. So finally, we will move over onto Twitter. Jamie asks me, have you got over China Season 12 yet? No. So that was a league race that Jamie and I did too many years ago. Now we're so old. But I got 2 punctures in a single race because F1 2016. Mustafa asks, kiss, marry, kill. Mazepin, Latifi, Maldonado. Kill Mazepin, I think for obvious enough reasons. I reckon Latifi. I reckon he'd be a good... no, actually, I'm going to marry Latifi just because his family comes from a lot of money. So, I like that security. And kiss Maldonado because he's quite a scary man. And I think if he came towards me, I probably would if he asked me to because I wouldn't want to upset him. Spagwetti, otherwise known as Ty, asks, what is your favourite thing about recording your content? Honestly, I like sharing it with people. I got obviously this huge passion for F1. I love talking about F1. And, it's kind of mad now to think that I can sit in my room and talk about it and people listen. Jack asks, if I could pick any Grand Prix to attend, which one would it be? Monaco. It's got to be Monaco. Obviously, I've been quite lucky. I've been to a few already. So I've been to Monza, Imola, Belgium a few times, Silverstone, and Austria. Out of those, my favourite actually was probably Monza. It quite surprised me with just how well set up it was this year. Helped, of course, by the sun. Silverstone, actually, 2022 was mega, obviously, because I was quite lucky to go VIP with channel sponsor or ex-channel sponsor Bybit. But Monaco has definitely got to be right at the top of everybody's bucket list. But there we go then. That is going to do us for the Q&A. A massive thank you to all of those of you that have listened and enjoyed. Of course, if you've got any other questions as well, make sure you ask them down in the comments below. Of course, apologies if I didn't read out your name. Obviously, we did get quite a lot of the same question on this video. But yeah, once again, I just want to say a massive, massive thank you to all of you for making this possible. I never genuinely expected any of this to be possible, even just a couple of years ago, especially, over the last 2 years, things have just absolutely changed. It's been crazy. But yeah, thank you all so much for watching. If you have enjoyed, please do make sure to leave a like. Get yourself subscribed if you're new around here. And maybe we'll do another one of these if we ever get to 200k. A massive thank you to all of my YouTube members and my Patreon supporters for their continued donations to help my work. These things go much further than I think a lot of you ever realise and allow me to continue making content full-time here on YouTube. So if you want to support me from as little as £1 a month and be featured on all of these end clips, either click the join button next to the subscribe or head over to my Patreon. There's a link down in the description.